Welcome to the workshop today titled Foundational Skills for All Readers. I titled it that way so that you really have the sense that when we're talking about phonemic awareness and letter sound correspondence and phonics instruction, that we're really mindful that while we think of these as skills that 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds are engaging in, that these are truly the foundational pieces for all readers. And often when we run into struggling readers who are older, we go back to automaticity with letter sound correspondences, and we see a lot of gaps in learning. We might also see those gaps in learning with phonemic awareness too, and that they need to develop pattern recognition, understand the patterns in our language, and that phonics instruction that is systematic and cumulative allows us to be able to do that. So if learning some high impact evidence-based instructional strategies is part of what you'd like to do, then stick around because I'm going to show them to you. And I'm going to tell you that at the end of this workshop, when you go to weshallread.org, you're going to find a ton of free materials available, not just ones I show you, but others also. Why? Because I founded We Shall Read as a 501c3 organization. It's a nonprofit because I really believed in making this type of instruction barrier-free. I co-authored a program called Brain Friendly Reading. We've tested it in schools with English language learners, special education programs in districts, and had tremendous results. Teachers are also using it tier 2 and tier 3, and some of them are pushing in tier 1 with these instructional strategies also because they're so easy to use, very straightforward, and they almost always are ones that teachers can layer on top of whatever instructional choices their school has already made. So your school might have a curriculum and you're looking for some strategies for how you can help children move up that ladder of reading. This is the workshop for that. So a little bit of science before we get started. When we think about all the things that the brain needs to know how to do, we could look at Scarborough's rope if you're familiar with that. But today we're just focusing on two pieces that are really in the bottom part of Scarborough's rope. Those phonological skills, which includes the phonemic awareness. Today I'm not going to talk a lot about rhyming and alliteration or clapping syllables, but clearly if your children need those things, continue to bring that to them. And we're going to talk quite a bit about letter sound correspondences and how to build automaticity with those, that speed and accuracy for a child to be able to recall those in a way that enables them to use that information for reading and for spelling. When we think about phonics, we know that it's a way of teaching reading where the child matches sounds to letters. In brain-friendly reading, we train the brain to automatically recognize those letter sound connections through a lot of repetition with letter sound correspondences. Why? Because at the end of the day, we need children to be able to take the sounds at and blend them together into a word mat. And we want them to be able to write the word mat. They have to be able to think of the word mat, make a picture in their mind ideally, and then break mat into 3 sounds. At. Some people do it on their fingers, and that's totally fine. We do it on our arms with the first sound here, the second sound on the elbow, and the third sound on the wrist. It's a gross motor way of tapping the words that we call arm tapping. So when we look at the steps to reading fluently, we know those phonological skills are foundational. And we're helping the children to develop the ability to be able to break words into their sounds or isolate sounds in words and then attach those sounds to the letters in our written language. And all of that is the foundation for that phonics work, that reading and spelling of individual words. And then we can scaffold that by reading and spelling phrases and sentences. And all of that work is transferable to reading in the beginning 100% decodable books. So how can we bring this theory to life to help the children learn these foundational skills? We can know that those skills are important, but how do we know what to do when we're with the children in our lives? And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about arm tapping and chart tapping and sound dictation and some of the games that we play or instructional strategies that we use with the children that help them to be able to have the number of repetitions that they need in order to store those letter sound correspondences into long-term memory and to be able to recall them when they need them. Often those two skills are ones that children need a lot of practice with. And if we give them enough repetition when they're young enough, then they can accomplish that goal and avoid possibly ever even being diagnosed with a learning deficit in that area. First skill. Arm tapping enables children to break words into sounds and to blend sounds into words. So yes, we use it for reading and we use it for spelling. You see the little girl here in kindergarten, she's putting the word hot on her arm from her short O CVC page. And she's highlighted the O and says ah, and she puts it on her arm and reads that word and blends it together. So it looks just like this. Let's say her word is cot, and she'll go ah, t, k, ot, k, ot, until she can blend those sounds together into a word. This is a gross motor strategy that allows the children to engage in that blending of the sounds, isolating each and every individual sound, and then blending them together. An easy way to help children to acquire the skill of arm tapping and blending sounds into words is to play a game like I Spy. I spy a f, a, n. And the more segmented it is, the more space there is between those sounds, the harder it is for the child. And some children might say fan right away, and some children might be looking at you blankly. So you can extend those sounds or stretch those sounds and see how many more children can guess it. And fan, where you're almost saying the word for them. And when they hear it, they can raise their hand, give you a thumbs up, whatever it might be. But you don't have to just do it with CVC words. You can do it with words that have 3 sounds to them, or even a blend at the beginning or a blend at the end. So you could do b, or you might do chair, ch, chair. That already kind of sticks together, doesn't it? Or maybe you have a sh, ulf, sh, ulf. That E's a little sticky with that L too. But all the time that you're playing this game, you're helping the children to be able to isolate those sounds and blend those sounds together. Could you break your ending blends apart or your beginning blends apart? Absolutely. Do what works for you. We play a game called Secret Decoder Game, where the children have objects in front of them. And if you're the teacher, you might have objects as well. And you have those objects laid out. In this case, they're likely CVC objects. And you are isolating the difficulty. Instead of anything the child might see, you might have a mop, a can, and a rug. The boy on the left is leading this game, and there are 2 little 3-year-olds who are playing with him. So he's saying, ooh, I'm thinking of something. Can you crack the code? I have a at, at, at. And maybe he knows how to stretch those sounds. And when the 3-year-old knows it, they can say mat and then pick the mat up and put it in front of them. Of course, this is in a Montessori classroom where the children are playing around a rug. Teachers do this under a document camera with the whole class. And they just tell the class, if you think you know it, don't call out, just raise your hand. You can also do it in a small group. Use more objects to make it more challenging. And of course, you can include objects that aren't CVC objects as well. This game is really a precursor for helping children to learn how to blend sounds together orally.
The next activity is the initial consonant sort. It is an activity that can be done right alongside the secret decoder game as children begin to develop those letter sound correspondences and written letters are introduced. In this case, we have 2 letters that the children are going to discriminate between, and they are very different sounds. B, t. The mouth shape is very different as well. This activity is one that you can do with young children with all letter sounds, But as children are older and there are specific letters that they need to focus on, you can isolate those skills for them so they can practice where their needs are. But essentially, the children are developing phonemic awareness and letter sound correspondences together. In this case, we're using the squares from the sound charts that the children have been tapping as a reference so that they can work independently and they have a way to self-correct. The stack of picture cards are available for them to be able to sort by saying the picture name, like book, and isolating the beginning sound, the b, and putting it where it goes. This very simple activity is one that children not only enjoy, but it's also a way for you to be able to gain some information about the speed and accuracy with which they can identify those initial consonant sounds.
Today we're going to work with these two letters. Let's tap it on our chart first. Can you tap this 3 times for me? M, map, do it again.
M, map, mm.
And do it one more time.
M, map, mm.
Great. And we're also going to use this square. C, cat, k.
C, cat, k.
And one more time.
C, cat, k.
We're going to take our objects and we're going to say, what sound does this start with? This is a map. What sound does it start with? App.
App.
App. That's a mat. Mat.
Mat.
Man. Man.
And can.
And yes.
Up. App.
And you're kind of an expert at this, aren't you? If you were stuck, you could arm spell it and think about what the first sound was. Those are ear training activities, but we're also connecting it to the letter with the initial consonant sort. And the work I'm about ready to show you with the tapping of the sound charts is really driven by the research of this French cognitive neuroscientist, Stanislas Dehaene, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. He has a wonderful YouTube video called How the Brain Learns How to Read in a book. And his research really indicates that teaching letter sound correspondences is the fastest way to acquire reading and comprehension. And once these correspondences are learned, self-teaching can occur. That doesn't mean we don't have to teach explicit lesson or that we don't need to teach them the spelling rules or teach them words that don't follow phonetic patterns, but teaching the letter correspondences in his research is the fastest way to acquire reading and the big C comprehension. We just have to do it with enough repetition. How many repetitions is it going to take for your student to map the letter T to the sound and push that into long-term memory and then be able to recall it in a millisecond so that they can read a word that has that letter in it quickly and accurately? This research indicates that it could be up to 200 repetitions for children with dyslexia. And I'm going to tell you from the children I've worked with that sometimes it's far more than 200. And we have struggling readers who are older that often they have gaps in their automaticity with letter sound correspondences. When we tap the chart, we give them a way to be able to practice that, to get the repetitions in that they need so that they can have that quick and automatic recall. Not just with the things that you might consider on a first chart, but some of the anomalies like CIEY and GIEY that comes from the French. You see a blends chart there, and we teach blends, we tap blends. Yes, we know that it's 2 letters that make 2 sounds, but the common consonant blends, when they're tapped, help the children to map the sound that they naturally make, bull, to the 2 letters BL. There are digraphs on that chart and 3-letter blends and a few silent blends as well. On the teams chart, we have all the different vowel teams and diphthongs along with the R-controlled vowels so that the children can tap those and move those into long-term memory. And we have a syllables chart with some final stable syllables and ED and some other syllables work that we teach when we do this work. Why? But when we tap the charts, we give them the ability to tap it as many times as they need to to store it into long-term memory. We started to look at how we can help children do more than just tap it, call, and response, and then tap the chart all together. And we, along with the children, came up with a way to scaffold this work, moving towards tapping charts without pictures, as you see this little boy doing, where the children are just going through this chart, saying the sounds. And boy, that is challenging. We really know from the brain research around how the brain likes to learn that doing something familiar that's slightly different, a little bit harder, keeps our attention. It engages the children. It's interesting for them. They have a goal that they're working toward, even though they don't know it. Chart tapping really helps to develop that letter sound connection. We're addressing the alphabetic principle. Like I said, there's charts available on Brain Friendly Reading on the website and also on YouTube. So that'll help make sure that you have all the correct sounds as you can learn them right alongside your children. You could assign it to parents, give them a QR code for them to be able to tap the chart with their children at home with the video so that they use the correct sounds. And then there's also a video of tapping the chart all together from top to bottom.
This is the first brain-friendly reading chart. Let me show you how you tap the chart. You touch the letter, touch the picture, and then touch the letter again. We say the letter name, we say the name of the picture, and then we say the sound that the letter makes. It looks like this. A, apple, A.
A, apple, A.
B, bat, B.
B, bat, B.
C, cat, K.
C, cat, K.
C-I, C-E, C-Y, city, S.
C-I, C-E, C-Y, city, S.
D, duck, D.
So that chart tapping process can start with just I say it and then you say it as slowly as you need to. You could teach one strip a day if you're working with younger children. If you're working with kindergartners, I'd suggest using the kindergarten chart. Your goal is to increase over time speed and accuracy. This little girl started out in first grade with sticky notes over most of her chart because
F H G Goka G I G E G Y Giraffe G H I H I J Jar J
E and N, L like Lou, D dog dog, K like cup, S on C I C E C Y C G Georgia.
another way to practice this work is to make a chart board game. So you can take just the squares from a printed chart, cut them apart, and one teacher turned this into what looks like something like a Chutes and Ladders game, where you draw a number instead of using a dice, and you move your guy around the board, ever how many that is. You can also just make it even really simply where there's no chutes or ladders. But you can use the first chart, you could use the blends chart, you could use the teams chart, whatever it is that you wanted to do. But it's a great way for the children to practice. And when they land on their square, they tap their square. CK sock. This is a wonderful way for children to be able to work independently who need additional opportunities to tap the chart during the day. Here is another option that you can use, the board games that just have letters printed on them from our kindergarten material. For each of the strips on the kindergarten chart, we have board games that correspond to them so that it's just the letters that have been taught. And you can have the strip out along with the board game so that the children can reference the strip when they land on the letter. You see to the right, we have some teachers who are making their own board game by cutting apart the squares and including the letter and the picture. So you can customize this work. Another way to practice letter sound correspondences, we have letters and pictures together. We cut those apart and allow the children to match the picture to the corresponding letter. That looks a lot like the initial consonant sorting activity, but with more letters and more pictures and without the repetition for any one letter. Another activity to help children develop letter sound correspondence with the short vowels, which are often the piece that's sticky for kiddos. They might learn all their consonants and really not have cemented their short vowels. That's often what we see with older struggling readers. So a way to really check that for kindergarten, first, second grade students is to do something like the short vowel game that you can do whole group or one-on-one. You tap your chart, A, apple, A, E, edge, I, itch, O, octopus, U, up, and that's a gem, Y, gem, where Y comes in the middle of consonants. It says it. You can cover that with a sticky note if you want to. You don't have to use it. But, if kids are not brand new and they've been taught this skill, it's a great place to practice that Y says I in the middle of consonants and that there are two things that say I. So we tap the chart, and the next thing we do is that the teacher says the sound and the child touches the square. So the teacher says, and you can extend that sound, and have the children say it back to you, so that they're activating their brain. They have made the mouth shape for the correct sound, and that they heard the sound that you meant. That's key. Sometimes our kids drift off. So if you say and they say and then ideally they touch or they grab the pup tent. That is a way to practice it all. And then if you want to say, test them or do a little formative assessment with them, you are going to pick up the pup tent or touch the square, and the children are going to give you the sound. That's the hardest piece. Sometimes you're at level 2 for a long time with children before they're able to move to level 3, and that's okay. Another way to practice letter sound correspondences is with traditional concentration or memory, where you lay out a grid pattern, as many as you want, of the letter cards and the picture cards, and the children turn over 2 and see if they match, and then turn them back over. That works fine, except if you have children who have low working memory or who are very young. You can do concentration, but with a variation. We call it face-up memory in the Brain Friendly Reading Program. And you lay out your grid pattern. You can see we had 5 matches here. So our letter cards are yellow and our picture cards are orange. That's an extra benefit from having that visual cue. So with face-up memory, you leave all the cards face up, and the player takes a turn turning over one card and seeing if it matches. And if it matches, they tap it and check it. Yes, it matches, and they keep it. And if they don't match, they just leave them there. And the next player turns over a card, and then they go, does that card match any of the others that are face up? And if they don't, they just leave them there. And you play that way till all the matches are made. And you can see that somebody had SH that matched the ship. So player 1 has 1 match, SH, ship, sh. And yes, these are on those sound charts I was telling you about. The children can really do this work when they've been tapping their sound charts, and that this is reinforcement. So we think tapping the sound charts is job 1. Do it every day. Children will tire of tapping the sound charts 3 and 4 times a day, but they enjoy playing these different games where they get to practice those letter sound combinations in different ways. So this can be done with letters and pictures. We also do this with our game decks that we have, our card decks that we often call Go Fish card decks, because we do a lot of Go Fish playing in the Brain Friendly Reading Program.
Another activity that we do in the Brain Friendly Reading Program is called sound dictation. It's a companion activity to chart tapping, where we dictate sounds to children so they can practice writing the letters that go with those sounds. So you can see here that I would say to the child the name or the sound of a letter, like and the child would say back to me while they write the letter M, but they're just saying the sound. And I can keep dictating sounds to children. I might say V, they say back to me V, and they write it. Ah, they say ah, and they write the ah. There are many variations for this, for all different kinds of digraphs, vowel teams, and much more. But this helps the child practice writing the letter that goes with the sound they hear. This is a preparation for spelling. Next activity is really a place for the children to synthesize their skills and engage in that orthographic mapping process using a speech to print approach where the children are having a word dictated to them or looking at an object and then using their letter tiles to be able to build that word.
So when we use pictures or objects, particularly with young children, we're helping them to attach that letter sound combination to something in the real world to make meaning. And notice that I'm just using colored paper. I've written the vowel in a red pen to help the child, again, with that visual discrimination, but I didn't need to. I want you to know that the brain doesn't care if you have paper tiles, magnetic tiles, whether you have hard tiles, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that you give the child the opportunity to practice constructing or spelling words sound by sound.
So here's our object today. This is a fan. Can you arm spell fan?
And fan.
Perfect. And here's your 3 tiles. Can you build the word fan? Fan. And since you know how to write, you can choose a square on your bingo board to write fan. And sound it out while you do it. Here's our last object. This is a map. Does that look like a map? Can you tell? And here are our last 3 letters. Can you arm spell map first?
App. Map.
App.
Map.
Right? We could keep building words and filling in our bingo board and then play bingo. That would be fun.
So this is an activity that you could do over many days where you maybe have a rainbow of letters and they pull down the letter tiles rather than handing them to them. There's a variety of different ways that you can do this building words with letter tile work. But what I want you to see is that the child is hearing the word, segmenting it orally into its individual sounds, and then saying what letters attach to that oral segmentation. And then this child is able to write, so they can take that same word and write the word. And when you use that same process over and over again, the children are really familiar with the process. And you can use that when you are teaching blends or CK or SH, any of those additional skills. Some of the games we have available are board games that have words written on them that all go with a specific skill. And this is short O. That each child who's playing has an object and they roll their dice or draw a card that has a number on it and they move one and read their word. Ought, ought, hot. And then the other child rolls and they move 1, 2, 3 and they read their word. This one is called In and On. It's a short ah, and this is for a child's name. This is actually one piece of paper cut in half. These 2 pieces were folded, and then 2 staples were put in it. And they're line drawings so that the children can color them. The beginning of each book starts with a vocabulary building, and then the child can read the longer sentence. Is the log? Is the dog on? Is the fox in a box? Sometimes these little words are really ones that are hard for children to understand who are a second language. And a book like this just happens to be one where we've included those position words. Here are 2 strips for the words. This is what the phrases look like. And this is what the sentences would look like. Here is the same material that we were just looking at in a CVC book, but it's an individual card and other concepts are included. That's short O. This is short A, where we're helping the children to make a picture in their mind of the words that they are reading while learning new vocabulary. So they can just be taught as individual rectangles, but you can also cut the word apart from the picture. And you can mix up the words and mix up the pictures, and the children can engage in a 2-column matching activity.
A pan. And we're saying, does that have meaning? Yes, it does. A ban. You could even stack them up when the children are done and put a little staple in the end of it, maybe a piece of colored paper on the front, and now they have a book, Nan. And you can do the same thing with the individual square, whether they are sentences or phrases or individual words. You can turn a page like this into a decodable book for the child. Yes, it doesn't have a storyline, but boy, it sure does teach print concepts. Find game materials, sound chart card materials, and the complete program for kindergarten and the training companion guide, which is the full set of 80 lessons, at weshallread.org and brainfriendlyreading.org. On We Shall Read's website, you'll find quite a number of free materials. Go to the YouTube channels, find instructional videos. Tools in 10 has a great bite-sized PD series. Consider taking the asynchronous course to learn more. Come to Monday night group coaching calls. They're completely free to meet the team, to ask questions, and get connected to others who are learning how to use evidence-based instructional practices that move children up that ladder of reading.